There's no way to end the Skywalker saga and make all the fans happy, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker certainly isn't going to make all the fans happy. Those who love The Last Jedi will surely be peeved by the jettisoning of what the divisive 8th installment introduced, while those irked by The Force Awakens nostalgia bait will likely be irritated by Episode 9's recycling of familiar beats and plentiful fan service. The Rise of Skywalker labors incredibly hard to check all the boxes, and ultimately that makes the film a clunky and convoluted conclusion to this beloved saga, entertaining and endearing as it may be. The movie has lots of heart and energy and some very beautiful imagery of vivid new worlds throughout, particularly that watery lightsaber duel between Rey and Kylo Ren glimpsed in the trailers. But The Rise of Skywalker's overall execution is as enthusiastic as it is erratic, with a story full of plot holes large enough to fly a Star Destroyer through. It lacks nerve, relying instead on nostalgic fan service to try and make the ride as comfortable as possible for the masses, falling back on the most blatant but successful tool of all, big emotions, to score its most crowd-pleasing points. There are emotional payoffs to this trilogy's most debated subplots, some more effective than others. Big questions are answered, and other matters are definitively settled. There are bittersweet callbacks to the prior films, rousing battles on land and in the sky, and enough humor to generate more than a few guffaws. Yet the movie also uses its epic scale and breathless speed in the hopes that you don't dwell on the details of its convoluted storytelling and awkward retconning. The first half is exposition heavy and laden with multiple MacGuffins, a prolonged clue hunt before the film finds surer footing. The story only gains traction once it settles into the main physical and spiritual battle between Rey and Kylo Ren. Several new characters are cool looking, but ultimately don't really have much impact on the events of the finale, but that leaves room for the legacy players, C-3PO, Chewbacca, and Lando Calrissian, to ably serve their plot functions with heart and humor.
What are you doing there, 3PO?
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
While Finn and Poe act as the film's heroic men of action, the story strains to establish them along with Rey as a close-knit trio on par with Luke, Han, and Leia, when the reality is the characters have spent more time apart than together. Thus, much of the development of their relationship has happened off-screen between the end of The Last Jedi and the beginning of this film, so the stakes between them here aren't especially well earned.
Oh, they fly now!
They fly now?
This being Star Wars, the story is about the fight to find light in the darkness and to maintain hope against seemingly impossible odds. In that sense, The Rise of Skywalker lovingly showcases the fairy tale essence and widespread appeal that made the Skywalker saga the stuff of sci-fi legend. But it's also painfully obvious that director-co-writer JJ Abrams, Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy, and the other powers that be didn't really have a fully formed plan for this trilogy before committing The Force Awakens to film. Clearly, Abrams and Last Jedi director Rian Johnson had very different ideas about the direction and meaning of this trilogy, and The Rise of Skywalker suffers for that. Its overall messaging is muddled, and lack of a unified vision in getting these final 3 episodes from point A to C is obvious. Finally, while there had been much speculation about how The Rise of Skywalker would handle the inclusion of Leia given Carrie Fisher's death in 2016, the movie manages to make the best of a bad situation. Keen observers will likely deduce where Fisher's rejiggered takes originated from, but Fisher's scenes work as well as was likely possible under the tragic circumstances.
The Force will be with you.
Always.
There is a lot to process walking out of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, a film engineered to hit the viewer on multiple levels while struggling to settle 42 years worth of story elements, probably too much for any one film to handle. For as much love, passion, and nostalgia is evident in this movie, it's also a film very palpably made from a place of fear of disappointing the audience, and that anxiety fuels a lot of the story's curious creative choices and unwieldy execution, particularly in the film's closing act. Its pulling of heartstrings, its technical impressiveness, and relentless action will likely be enough for those fans who just want to keep the visor down on their blast shield helmets and let the Force flow through them. For those who can't, who need for there to be some consistency and logic to the story in this elaborately detailed fictional galaxy, there will likely be the bittersweet pang of accepting that this long-running saga couldn't quite stick the landing. But even at its most divisive and imperfect, the Star Wars franchise offered much to embrace and celebrate. This finale to the Skywalker saga is, if nothing else, a tribute to that. For more on Star Wars, check out the cast breaking down the Rise of Skywalker's big chase scene and catch up on the Skywalker saga by watching our timeline recap. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.